All right, I have a need to build a heavy duty feeding gate for the cows. I don't want to keep putting their hay into the pen with them because they have a tendency of laying on it and tromping it down, and just it doesn't last as well that way. And I've looked at the feeders. They're just so much more money than I want to spend right now. So what I intend to do is replace one of the gates on the pen with a feed-through gate. And that way my haystack is on the outside of the pen, and I can just set a single bale there, cut it open, and loose the hay out in front of the gate. And then the cows can just eat right through the gate. The bottom, say 2 feet, is either closed off or close knit and tight. And then the upper part where they put their head through the bars to feed, I've seen it work best if that's at a slant. When those bars are angled, they can't really jump through it, so the little calves don't get through it as easily. When I was at the steel salvage yard, they had a whole bunch of 1.25 inch steel tubing. And it's pretty heavy duty stuff. It looks like 1/8 inch wall. So I got a whole bunch of those for way cheap. The drill pipe was the most expensive part of it, but altogether for the drill pipe and the tubings, I think I was $140 or something like that. I'll draw a picture for what I'm looking at, and because I want to do some math on a few things there to make sure that I've got it figured out. I'm going to do 2 feet on the bottom that is wire mesh closed, and then the upper about 3 feet I'm going to do at a slant. I'm going to put the poles 12 inches apart with a full segment offset. So it's going to be about 12 inches over and 30 inches down. So it'll get a nice slant. And we'll get going welding this up.
I was walking out one evening late, the moon was rising high, headed for the riverside, around us fuss and fight. Patrolman, he walked by, asked me where I'm going, said if the sun set on me there, I'd never make it home. He said, don't go downtown tonight, there's trouble on the rise. The bad men in the shadows, and they're bound to take your life. If you mind to ramble, I'll tell you how I do. Keep your money in your pocket, then the razor in your shoe. Slipping silent through the creek, hounds to lose my scent. I went up a tree and I watched them turn, wondering where I went. I take a rest, I hold my breath, I let it simmer down. I climbed too high in my wandering eye, spied the lights of town. He said, don't go downtown tonight, there's trouble on the rise. The bad men in the shadows, oh, they're bound to take your life. But if you mind to ramble still, I tell you how to do. Keep your money in your pocket, boy, and the razor in your shoe. take your ride. But if you mind to ramble still, I'll tell you how to do. Keep your money in your pocket, boy, and a razor in your shoe. Keep your money in your pocket, son, and a razor in your shoe.
All right, that's got the bottom part. That's going to keep it wire filled so that the hay can sit on the other side of that and be good, but I don't have to worry about it rusting out a solid full sheet of metal. So I think it'll work. Now I'm going to do the side extensions that come up to support the top rail, and then we'll cut all of the filler slats at an angle and get them set into place to fill in the top. We should be wrapped. At this moment, I realized that the third section of drill pipe that I had was about a foot short. We had to cut it at the salvage yard to be able to fit it on the truck, and I told them that I wanted it cut at about 10-foot length, and we ended up with one that was 9'6". So it wasn't long enough, and I had to get creative to make up a new top rail. I didn't get it on camera, however, because my camera died and I didn't realize that it had. But in all of my gatherings of round pipe from the salvage yard, I ended up with several lengths of 1 3/4 by 1/8 round tubing, which was plenty heavy to do the top rail for that. So I ended up using this large chunk of angle iron as a centering point for those pipes, laying them in the saddle of it. to weld the pipe together to make a long length, which I used for the top rail. So once I had gotten 3 of them welded together end to end to make sure I had plenty of length, I welded them to the ends of the gate across the top. My next move was to weld in the first slanted pipe in the center of it to help make sure that I could keep the pipes parallel and make sure that everything stayed even. After that, I secured the first 2 on the ends and then started fitting up the pipes. After cutting and fitting the first 3 or 4, I decided that I was spending way too much time trying to cut and fit each individual pipe to the location when they should all be pretty consistent. I'm not sure why I didn't set up some kind of a jig or something like that from the onset, since I would have 10 of these to repeat cuts on. But what I ended up doing is just that. So I took this large piece of angle iron that I've been clamping the pipes into to secure them, and I adjusted its angle in relation to the gate to match up exactly to the slanted pipes on the top. That way, when I use the bandsaw to cut the ends of the pipe, I can line the bandsaw blade parallel to the bottom pipe of the gate and make sure that I have the consistent angle on the cut. So I cut and fit this last piece and then used it to mark up the jig, or the angle iron that I was using as a jig, to get my length established and make sure that I could cut all of these with a consistent angle, and then use the grinder to cope and make a nice saddle so it would sit nicely against the round pipe. Like I said, I should have done that from the onset, but I didn't think about it till I was about halfway through. Needless to say, it definitely sped up the last pieces that I had to put in. initially I hadn't really given much thought to painting this gate. I kind of prefer the look of the rusty steel, and that surface oxidation tends to get to a certain point and stop, so long as it's not still in corrosive elements. Ultimately, though, with all the weld marks and the new steel that was in all the top portion of it, I decided that it would look a lot better if I went ahead and primed and painted everything as it was now. So after using the grinder and the wire wheel to knock all the slag and any flux off of all the welds, I used the grinder to clean up the cut ends so that there wasn't any sharp edges. And then I hit the top side with the first coat of red oxide primer. The next morning, I came in to clean everything up and get it flipped over so that I could prime the other side, get it painted, and try to get it mounted into place. Welding, grinding, and wire wheeling rust and weld slag sure leaves a huge mess in the shop. So I definitely wanted to take time to get that out of my way, and I was a little bit surprised at the size of the pile that ended up. Now that I had that mountain of debris out of my way, I set out my masking paper and started painting, and realized quickly that this was going to be a lot more cumbersome to do it this way, and it would be a lot easier if I just hung the thing from the front of the tractor on a string, and then I could prime it, paint it, and have it cure out in the sun, and I wouldn't have the overspray in the shop. So I slipped in a couple of smaller pipes into the top rail of the gate, and then just tied it off with some baling twine, and set off to do just that. Hang it from the loader forks and paint it outside. I've been having a real good time playing around with this drone, trying different ways of capturing footage as I do things around our farm. This particular drone has a tracking feature that will allow it to follow a vehicle or a person in motion. And I found that up here it doesn't seem to work very well because of all the trees. If it's flying behind me and the tree branches come between me and the camera, it tends to lose me and lose track of where I've gone. So for this sequence, I used a flight path mode, where it allows me to go in and designate waypoints, and it will fly that route repeatedly, recording as I go. It worked out really good, and I really like the results. I just had to make sure that I traveled at the right speed to stay in front of the camera.